All right, we are live.
Awesome. Hey, everybody, and welcome to our community prep meeting today, hosted by Councilmember Kshama Sawant's office. My name is Bia. I'm a community organizer in Councilmember Sawant's office. And today we're going to go over how to sign up for public comment, what the process looks like, and then discuss talking points for a few really important community demands. First, we're going to talk about Councilmember Sawant's legislation to make contractors pay for all construction worker parking at all Seattle job sites. There's really serious momentum growing around this legislation, which is really exciting. Almost 1,200 signatures on our petition to demand that City Council support this legislation. Of those signatures, nearly 400 are construction workers, ranging from union apprentices, foremen and general foremen, and independent subcontractors, workers across all trades who stridently support this demand and want to fight for it. After that, we're going to talk about our really exciting people's budget demands for New Hope affordable housing, clean greens, and affordable housing expansion citywide. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to, looking forward to a really powerful public comment session. I'm going to pass it over to Nick real quick here to talk about how to sign up for public comment so that we can all be prepared at noon when the form goes live.
All right, thank you, Bia. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. Like Bia was saying, this is be a very powerful day for public comment to put pressure on the City Council to pass some really vital and exciting legislation for working class people. Let's all bring our voices and the pressure of our collective movement to the fore here. Hopefully everyone's very familiar with this page at this point. If you're not, this is the page you're going to want to go to be able to sign up for public comment when the form goes live in about 27 minutes. It should be pretty simple to find. Whatever browser you're using, you should just be able to type in Seattle public comment. And it should be this first URL right here, seattle.gov. Just click that, it'll bring you right to the page for public comment. You'll see if you scroll down, right here in a little less than a half hour, this is going to turn into a sign-up form we can all fill out together to make sure that our voices are going to be some of the first ones the council hears during today's public comment sign-up. And it's really vital. We definitely all fill it out if possible. So have this page ready so we can all go through it together. In about a half hour. If you can't do it in a half hour, that's okay. You can fill out this page anytime between noon and 2, but sooner is certainly better so you can give public comment, especially if you're working. If you're a construction worker joining us on this call and you're only able to give public comment very quickly, definitely sign up as fast as you can. They'll be able to get to you a lot sooner. So with that, I think I'm going to just send it back to Bia and we can kind of go through the rest of our meeting this morning.
Thanks, Nick. So like I said, the momentum's really growing to make contractor bosses pay all parking for all construction workers in Seattle. It's ridiculous that workers should have to pay to park at their own jobs. And we spent weeks now talking to construction workers outside of major job sites like the Convention Center expansion, the Climate Pledge Arena, and various sites in the Denny Triangle area. There's really overwhelming support for this demand. And, like I said, we've had so many signatures on our petition and lots of stories been shared with us in the council office about, what it's really like for construction workers to have to pay for parking at so many sites, for pretty much every day at a lot of sites that they work at. And I'm going to get into some of those statements later on that I think are really powerful. But first, I want to talk about how the City Council President, Lorena Gonzalez, has refused to include our fully paid parking legislation on the council's calendar. She and other politicians on the City Council are making excuses about how they don't have time because of budget meetings that are going on right now for the council. And, as if workers don't have to multitask every day, this legislation is really critical for the, thousands and thousands of construction workers who work at Seattle job sites. And really what the Democrats on City Council are trying to do is to use bureaucratic excuses to kill the momentum that's really growing around this legislation in the wake of the carpenter strike. we can't afford to wait, and we really need to use this momentum to win. So that's why it's so important that everyone is here today to talk in public, to prepare for talking in public comment. Hopefully everyone has sent an email to the council demanding that they not delay this legislation. But we are moving to have put the councils on the council calendar for them to put our legislation on the council calendar, which if passed could result in a vote on the bill as early as November 1st, potentially. But so it's likely the council won't vote in favor of this. Potentially they will try to delay it, but that's why, we really have to put pressure on them to not delay this vote. And, this vote is going to take place before public comment. So we all need to pay really special attention to how this vote goes. If they vote against having this on the council calendar, we need to call them out for this bureaucratic maneuvering in our public comment. They absolutely can take this vote and work on the budget at the same time. That's what they were elected to do. That's their job as council members. And they're just making excuses to delay this bill, and we can't let them do it. So like I said, if you haven't already, take 30 seconds to find our latest email blast in your inbox, or message, make a comment in this live stream. We'll share a link with a link that you can just really easily email the city council to demand that they not delay this legislation and support it, this really critical measure to make the contractor bosses, who absolutely should be paying for parking. It's a cost of doing business, right? Not a cost of going to work. And they should be paying for this parking for construction workers. But yeah, I want to go now into what it can look like to sort of craft our public comment, some of these talking points that we've sent out that everyone hopefully should have already. But again, if you have any questions or need these talking points or, help emailing the council, please leave a comment in this live stream right now, or you can always reach out to us and the council. But yeah, most directly, just leaving a comment here would be one way to do that. So yeah, we're happy to help folks craft their public comment. So yeah, we want to tell council, support Councilmember Sawant's legislation to require all contractors to fully pay parking for all construction workers. When you give your comment, you want to introduce yourself, what your name is, and then what your job is. Especially if you're a construction worker, definitely say your trade and union if you're in one. We really are going to win this really only if construction workers and union members are showing up to pressure city council members to stand with workers over the billionaire contractor bosses. We want to say, I'm calling in support of the bill put forward by Councilmember Kshama Sawant to make construction contractor bosses fully pay 100% of all parking costs for all construction workers on Seattle job sites. And then say, something else. Here's some other examples of things you can say. You probably won't have time to say all of this. It's 60 seconds, most likely that you'll have. That's what we would plan for. It can be up to 2 minutes depending on how many people sign up for public comment, but it's always safest to just plan for 60 seconds. And so another thing you can say, is I'm calling on you to stand with construction workers in Seattle, not with the contractor bosses, by voting in support of this basic need for the thousands of workers who build our city. Carpenters and other construction workers are required to drive to job sites with vehicles loaded with tools, harnesses, and other equipment required for the job, but have to pay sometimes $100 or more a week for parking. That works out to thousands of dollars a year that construction workers have to pay just to go to work. If you're a construction worker, definitely talk about how this issue impacts you or your coworkers personally, anyone that you know who has had to deal with this. And yeah, just try to be brief about that, but it's really impactful to tell your own story in that way. Most construction workers are forced to drive in and park from outside of Seattle because they can't afford to live in the buildings that they themselves build. This is because the cost of living is so high, especially with the lack of affordable housing and sky high rents. That ties in, really well with these people's budget demands that Nick is going to talk about next. But average home prices in Seattle are over $800,000, and it's over $2,300 a month for a one-bedroom apartment in the city. Rents have risen more than 25% since the start of this year alone. So, this legislation, you can talk about how much it has really huge support. If you're a construction worker calling in, this is a 2 p.m. meeting is not something that most workers can make during the day. Like construction workers, especially, are still on the job. And a lot of them that we've talked to really support this legislation, but can't call in because they're on a job site. And, that's because the council ultimately, wants to make it hard for working people to be able to call in and make their voices heard. And so if you're able to call in, it's important that you talk about how there's probably lots of your coworkers who can't call in right now, but who do really support this legislation. And that's something you should definitely mention, that all these workers should be able to live in the city that they build, and then also should be able to, at the very least, park at their own jobs without having to pay. This is really ultimately paying for parking should be a basic cost of doing business in Seattle. If you're a contractor making millions hiring workers to build luxury, high-rise towers, convention centers, arenas, other massive buildings, then you can afford to pay for parking for the thousands of workers who actually do that work every day. So this kind of requirement, pay for parking, is no different from the city requiring employers to meet other employment standards like the minimum wage, paid sick and safe time, secure scheduling, and the commuter benefits ordinance. Ultimately you can wrap up your comment by, you can say any of those things, and then, wrap up by once again reiterating, I urge you as Seattle City Council members to immediately pass Councilmember Sawant's legislation to require all contractors to pay parking for all construction workers, no delays, no watering down. I think we have some time here. I want to make sure that I can share a bit of some statements from construction workers who have, sent statements to us about, why they support this legislation and, why this is so critical for them. One of them is from Taylor Werner, who is an apprentice electrician with IBEW Local 46. And she says, I'm a first generation construction worker. Since I joined the union, my son has had medical insurance for the first time in his life. When I was applying for the apprenticeship, I gained experience in the trade and made my application more competitive by working as a limited energy installer for a major local electrical contractor. It's an entry-level job that pays only $15 an hour. We moved from site to site, and I remember once paying $35 for parking in the morning, only to drive across town and pay another $18 somewhere else. To pay the equivalent of 2 hours of my pay per day was not unusual, but it was the only way I could see to get my foot in the door. I was able to live with my family during those months rent-free, which is the only way I gained access to the industry that has transformed my economic prospects. But for many women, single parents, disproportionately Black and Brown people, those who would benefit the most from access to relatively good wages and the benefits of the construction industry, the cost of parking is not just burdensome, but prohibitive. Why should a single mom paying $15 an hour trying to break into an industry that could elevate generations of her family out of poverty have to cover a parking expense that is the equivalent of upwards of 3 times her hourly wage? When the company she works for generates so much profit, they can afford to and routinely do throw away literally tons of essentially brand new material every day. And Taylor goes on to say, in my case, the bus is not an option. I've used public transportation whenever I can, but my son's school schedule requires that I leave the job site every day in a hurry to pick him up. My situation is not remotely unique, especially for women in the trades. Not every construction worker is a single parent, and not every construction worker lives paycheck to paycheck, but we're all someone's family. We all want to have a quality of life when we come home from work, hours after we've clocked out in so many cases, because many families are forced to live so far outside of the city. We work an 8-hour day for 8 hours of pay. On days when $35 goes to parking, can you call that 8 hours of pay? Contractors are enriched by our labor. It's time for them to do what's fair and fill that gap. And there's plenty of other comments too that I'll just go through here briefly and then send it over to Nick. But we've got other construction workers. Colleen Paul from Pile Drivers Local 2396 says, because contractors are making billions and maybe millions and maybe billions off the backs of construction workers, they better pay the parking while workers barely make a livable wage. And paying the parking is a way to alleviate some stress on workers. Please do the right thing and support the very hardworking people who are building Seattle and our future. Another worker, Brian Eccleston from IBEW Local 46 says, here's an example of how expensive parking can be downtown. As a second-year apprentice, I was working a 5-day schedule during the week, but one of those days I was required to be at the apprenticeship school, so I was only getting 32 hours in a week. Parking was so expensive that one full day's pay went to just paying to park at work for the week. So I worked 4 days a week, but really only received 3 days of pay because I so much had to go to parking. Another, Tyler Farnsworth from Northwest Carpenters Local 129 said, it's a major expense on top of long commute times and inflated gas prices and taxes. We struggle to fund these expenses while the billionaire dollar developers continue to make a fortune off the sweat on our backs. So I think these are really powerful statements and really go to showing how critical this legislation is and how important it is that everyone here today give public comment, email the council, and speak to why it's absolutely the responsibility of the city council to pass this legislation as soon as possible, so that this ends now. You know, this exploitation of workers having to pay to park at their own jobs while the contractor bosses make billions off of their labor, that should end as soon as possible. There's no reason to delay this. So yeah, I want to thank everyone again for being here. Please share any questions and comments you have in the chat. And I'm going to pass it back over to Nick now to talk about our other really great people's budget demands.
All right, thank you, Bia. Yes, hello, everyone. I don't think I introduced myself earlier, but my name is Nick Jones. I'm a community organizer in Councilmember Kshama Sawant's office. Yeah, and it's been incredibly powerful just talking to, on the phones of construction workers on job sites about the unbelievable impact our construction worker parking legislation could have on the lives of thousands and thousands of people. It is incredibly urgent that we fight for this, not let it get delayed. Like Bia was saying, every day it gets delayed is literally a massive chunk of people's paycheck being taken out of their pockets so their bosses can keep getting richer. Yeah, just like Bia said, the council's making bureaucratic excuses for not supporting Councilmember Sawant's legislation requiring contractors to fully pay for construction worker parking, saying they got to focus on the budget. But working people multitask all the time. We're doing this right now. We could be able to draft this legislation, put it forward, and still help build an incredible slew of budget demands and pay attention to what's going on in the budget. It's more than possible for the council to do it. And yeah, I wanted to bring up some of the budget demands we're going to be fighting on this year. But yeah, we've put forward this legislation for construction worker parking, but still there is the budget going on, and we want to fight to win as much for working people as we can in that arena of struggle as well. And so we have building our People's Budget 2021 campaign. This is done this every year since we were first elected 8 years now, building a people's budget, which we did in contradistinction to the way the budget traditionally had always been run, which was really, a period where the council could be wined and dined by big business so that these huge corporations could kind of just tell them a laundry list of their desires and the council would give it to them. We said that's unacceptable in a city that's one of the richest cities in the world. Some of the richest people in the entire history of humanity live here. While inequality is spiraling out of control, we have massive crises facing us, especially in housing. We should be absolutely fighting for everything we can get for working class people, and bring those voices into City Hall. Usually City Council totally wants to exclude everyday people. We want to bring everyday people into City Hall to fight for things that to fight for their needs and not just the profits of the rich in this budget season. Yeah, and of course, to win the people's budget, we really need the voices of everyday people involved at every stage in the budget process, which is going to wrap up at the end of November. So we should absolutely be bringing in all of the heat we can muster on the legislation to fully pay the parking for construction workers. And folks, if you are able to, should also be talking about the people's budget and the real massive impact passing these things could have on people's lives. I'm going to go into really what some of the things we're fighting for this week looks like. And yeah, we should really be urging the city council member to pass every one of these. But I think one of the most exciting things, especially in the situation we find ourselves in, where the housing crisis is so dire. Bia talked about some of the stats about the precarity facing renters every day in the city. One of our major demands is to provide bridge funding for the New Hope Community Development Institute and Lehigh in the Central District to literally enable the building of dozens of affordable homes in the Central District, and also fight back against the incredibly racist history of redlining that went on in the 60s through the process they called urban renewal, in which dozens of Black homeowners and Black businesses were totally driven out of the Central District, forced to sell their houses for way less than they're worth. And part of this is really addressing that that racist history of redlining that went on in the city. This summer, we talked to dozens of folks around the Central District, knocking on doors, talking to folks around New Hope Missionary Baptist Church, who's one of the main sponsors fighting for this. And together we all won a resolution that committed the City Council to fund affordable housing by the New Hope Community Development Institute, which commits them to doing this. And so that really came about because of mass community pressure and a really fighting approach that we have to take for all of the things we are demanding this year. But that funding has to be solidified through a budget vote, and we really need to put the City Council's commitment into action or demanding that they carry out through that promise and fully fund the New Hope Missionary Baptist Church project. We should also urge council members to support our People's Budget proposal that $200,000 to fund Clean Greens, which is a Central District-based nonprofit organization. It's dedicated to providing locally grown affordable produce for the Seattle community, especially in the CD. They distribute organic vegetable, local produce free of charge in the central area, which especially increases access to fresh produce for working and low-income families. And so produced, locally with the help of community volunteers. They've been reporting that they received far more requests than they currently are able to produce. And this, the city's got a multi-billion-dollar budget. $200,000 is really not that much in the context of this wider budget, but would have a massive impact on this this nonprofit work has just a massive demand they're not able to meet. Clean Greens farm volunteer Emily Chow sent us this statement saying, "I strongly urge all council members to support Councilmember Sawant's People's Budget proposal to add $200,000 to fund Clean Greens, Central District-based nonprofit organization dedicated to providing locally grown affordable produce in the Seattle community. Like I said, directly distributes fresh local produce free of charge. And adding this funding would immensely enable Clean Greens to expand its operations to fulfill the unmet need that is being put on them. Please seriously consider this. Just shows how much we could do if we could just, even if we're able to win this small thing. In the context of the wider budget, it's small, but it would have a massive impact. And certainly if we uplift, the reason we fight on the People's Budget platform, right, is all of these things individually would be very difficult to organize entirely around one demand here or there to force the council to act, but to collectively, if we can kind of fight on a platform together, which is the People's Budget, we're able to have a massive impact and uplift each other, which is really the way we're able to effectively create change. We also, it's crucial that we demand City Council support our demand to increase the Amazon tax that we won last summer by $120 million to expand funds to affordable housing and Green New Deal projects, including building urgent weather home weatherization. The mayor's current proposed budget dedicates only $38.6 million of the expected 1.45 million of these funds, which is a reduction of over $100 million in affordable housing, which is one of the most dire needs facing our entire city. There's a massive dearth of affordable housing. The vast majority of housing built in the last decade, it's all been luxury, these luxury properties that are outside the price range of everyday working people. It's part of why these construction workers having to drive into Seattle every day is because they can't afford to live here. To deprioritize one of the most urgent needs in the whole city is a complete lack of understanding of the needs of lives that people have here in the city. And so I think we not only need to make sure that funding goes toward affordable housing, we need to win more. And that's something we're absolutely fighting for in the People's Budget. Including when the Amazon tax, was passed in 2020, 9% of it was intended to fund Green New Deal programs. However, Mayor Durkin's proposed 2022 budget allocates only $8 million for Green New Deal initiatives, which is $13 million less. What is the mayor's budget deprioritizing? Affordable housing and addressing the urgent needs of fighting climate change. I don't know about you, but that means that to me, that what I hear is that my future isn't worth anything to the mayor and the political establishment. I find that completely unacceptable. We need to bring that heat to the City Council and let them know that we reject the status quo. We need urgent change to address the crises that are facing us in an incredibly dire, pressing way every day. I think it's more clear than ever to pretty much everyone that has to live day to day that climate change is increasing at a more and more severe clip. And every day, I mean, a lot of people I know are having to move constantly, sometimes multiple times a year. These are incredibly stress-inducing, crushing realities on everyday working people. And the status quo right now is telling us that that doesn't matter to them. What matters more importantly is that these people, the richest people in society, should continue to get richer. I think that's completely unacceptable. We also need to add $4.6 million to open 3 new tiny house villages to address, as they've been proven literally to be the most effective way of moving people off the street into permanent housing. The mayor continues to try to defund those. I think it's urgent. We need to fund more of them, actually. I think things that have real results should be funded. I don't know. Maybe that's a wild idea, but I don't think it is. And we also are trying to fund urgent needs of unsheltered neighbors forced to live in their vehicles, such as RVs. And because of the stunning affordability crisis, we're trying to get 3 safe parking lots with case management and other services, garbage pickup for the vehicular residents in the safe parking lots, and septic system pump out for vehicle residents and safe lots in city streets. If we actually want to address the crisis of housing and homelessness, then we need to find real solutions. I think this is our real solution where people could actually access services, have a safe place to go, instead of just trying to drive around every night, trying to find a modicum of stability in a completely unstable world. These are just, I think, some of the urgent things that we can really fight for and demand this year. Increasing the Amazon, rejecting the mayor's budget cuts to the Amazon tax, increasing the Amazon tax for affordable housing and a Green New Deal, funding 3 new tiny house villages. But we also want to place a proviso on all tiny house village funds from the Human Services Department budget, that those funds should be used for no other purpose. To make sure we actually use them. The mayor did not we funded tiny house villages last year, and the mayor just refused to release it. Just sat on those funds, also completely unacceptable. So we want to make sure that they're actually carrying out the victories we've won. So that funding the urgent needs of people living in RVs, through safe parking lots, funding clean greens by $200,000, and of course ensuring that the council fully supports the New Hope Community Development Initiative to build dozens of affordable housing units in the Central District, and continue to address that history of racist redlining that occurred in the CD. So I know we're getting really close to the public comment period where we're all going to be able to sign up. Yeah, hopefully, I know this is a lot. Hopefully folks can take notes, even if you just have to say one thing. Pick one of that list and you could totally bring that up. And again, we're probably going to have about a minute to give public comment. So I would say definitely be aware of everything about bringing up your name, if you're affiliated with a union or a community group, a nonprofit, if you're, construction worker, all those things, bring that in. That helps create extra pressure on the council to really show that we're not just speaking just with ourselves, but as a organized community and workers fighting for things that we really need. And then definitely say, to demand the council support Councilmember Sawant's legislation for fully paid construction partner legislation for the people's budget demands on one of the things I brought up. Those are all really powerful. I am going to share my screen. I am just refreshing right now the public comment sign up page. We can all fill it out together when it goes live. It's going live literally any moment here. Yeah, I guess. Again, if you're having issues, please post them in the chat. Let us know. We really want to make sure everyone's able to give public comment today. But yeah, and then even talking about, well, maybe this is it. Even talking about Councilmember Sawant's legislation, it's not like an ego thing to bring up the name. It really what the council members. Sorry, there's a background noise. It's my dog. The council members here and there, what they're hearing is that people are listening to who's bringing legislation that fights for their needs and on their behalf, and that people are paying attention and getting organized to fight, and that really does put fire under their feet, what we need to be urgently doing to win any of these things. Hopefully this comment form has gone live for some people. I've noticed lately it's had a strange slight delay. Usually it used to go live right at 2 hours before, but it has taken a few minutes here or there. So if you're like me, just keep refreshing this page. Hopefully everyone's doing this along with me. There it's live. You should now see a form just like this. You want to add your first name, last name, of course. About the email accurate with an email you have access to. They're going to send you via sorry everyone. Whatever email you put in there, you're going to get the Zoom number to call into public comment at that email address. Make sure that's easy and accessible for you. You want to put in the last 5 digits of your phone number. Use the phone that you'll be calling in with. That's how they're going to be able to identify you in the stack of public comment, so that they'll know you're present and you'll be able to give public comments. Just make sure that that's accurate to you. Click this little thing, fill this out however you want. Sometimes they don't have time. If we get a lot of people sign up for public comment, which I hopefully will do today, they might not get to everyone, but they'll all get a list of everyone that signed up, and they'll see what people wrote there. So even if you can't speak, sometimes it's nice to have a little blurb. And just hit submit, and you should get an email with the Zoom information. Again, everyone should probably have a minute to speak. When you get on the call, they should say your name, and then you'll just hit star and then 6, the little asterisk on your phone, and then 6. That will unmute you when it's your turn to speak. Sorry, hopefully I can't see these weird little blurbs I'm getting. And then, yeah, you should be able to be all good. So thanks, everyone. Hopefully you're all signed up. And I look forward to hearing from everyone at this 2 p.m. City Council meeting. Thanks. So yeah, until then, solidarity, and thank you for joining us this morning.